Um, just as a kind of intro, this is my uh, fourth total, no, third iteration of running UDL trials. I've been doing it for 3 years. Um, I ran with an original team my first year, and most of that team is retired or gone at this point. There's one left that's retiring this year. And then last year, I ran with a brand new team. And I got that team to return this year, which was great. And then I started two new teams this year as well. And I'm going to highlight those teams in just a second. Well, now that I'm talking about them, I'll just go into that slide and I'll come back. So my first team, I call it my original team because they're on year 2, was made up of a social studies, a math, a history, and an English teacher. My second team that I got together, I was focusing on the core areas again. I got an English, math, history, and then I filled one in with an art teacher that was interested. So that was the new team that I started this year. Most of those teachers, on a side note, were new teachers to the school, not necessarily brand new to education, but new to the school. And then my third team kind of started after the year began. I was in a PLC meeting and I had a team that sounded interested in talking about engagement. So I kind of just started running the process with that team as well during our PLC meetings, along with the other stuff that we also do during PLC meetings. I put together a slide just kind of about the trials in general. I just went over the teams right here. The second thing that I wanted to talk about was, especially last year, coming back into the year, I could tell that word was kind of starting to spread around the school about what we were doing in these teams and how great the teams felt when we were doing our discussions and our data analysis and whatnot. I attribute the new team that I formed this year in both the PLC and the core team mostly to that. Most of those teachers had talked to the 4 teachers that I ran the year before. So that was a good plus that we had going into this year. Started to kind of make a plan with administration about kind of just aligning processes to accommodate this as more of a regular thing instead of an extra thing. Because as many of you probably know, one of the biggest barriers is just time. Finding time to run the meetings and do the observations and whatnot.
It appears Mike has gotten stuck.
And we had some pluses there when I get to my tribulation slides and the criteria setting meetings, the engagement and the academic criteria setting meetings at the beginning. I feel like as a coach in my third year of doing this, like I've really got those unlocked. Those are running really well. And we have great conversations and we have great criteria that come from those, from the standards. And it really gets people to look at the standards and find commonalities between all of the standards. I've said that in these presentations before, that I think running mixed teams for me has been a big benefit. I think it's more of a benefit than it is a downfall of running a team with all English teachers or all math teachers or whatnot, because we get to look at everybody's standards and we find commonalities between the standards that are high level skills. So that's been going really well. And then we ended up, although we didn't get to finish, what the work that we did do ended up with some great results again. And discussions were a big bonus. Anybody that took part in the team discussions, the team debrief meetings after we finished a trial, really liked the discussions as well. So those are all kind of highlights and bonus, or highlights and positives of what happened this year. If we go on to, or did the teams, I just threw together a little bit of the data, just an overview. Um, so these are all three of the teams put together, not put together in separate. This is team one, my original team that's repeating. This is team two, and this is team three. Whoops, sorry. So I think we had some really great data. As you can tell, it went up. A couple of takeaways. I was really interested in this set of data right here for my team that was repeating in year two. I wanted to see what our baseline looked like after we had been through this for a solid year. And when I took that baseline data back in like October, November, I was hoping it was going to be a little bit higher, but we talked about that as a team, and it helped in the long run throughout the year because we talked about having planned, really just lesson planning and intentionally planning, not just the lessons that I'm coming in and observing, because the baseline was random this time. I just kind of popped in whenever I could, not and kind of taking the things that we talk about and applying them to all of our lessons and our everyday lessons, which I know that's a ton of work for teachers, and we already have a ton of stuff that we're already doing. But I feel like, especially for team one, we had great data last year when we ran through it. But after seeing how this year went combined with last year, I really think with that team, the next step is going to be pushing into like, how do we do this more consistently? How do we do this all the time instead of just 4 meetings that we're planning with me, with Mike, with the coach, or just for lessons, class periods that we're planning with the coach? How do we kind of do this more consistently across all of our classes? But we still had a great conversation, and our data went up from there. I do have to say that trial two data might not, in all of them, might not have spiked as much because I didn't finish trial two. So we were a little bit behind already, and something happened at the end of the year that forced me not to be able to finish my trials. So the trial two data for all of them might only have a portion of the team in it. I might not have gotten all 4 teachers into those trials, or I might not have gotten all 3 of the checks within trial two per teacher either. So those trial two spikes might be representative of that as well. But the stuff that I did collect in trial two was good. So those are all 3 of my teams. I did have a hiccup I wanted to talk about in, let's see if I can move this again. In trial, or in team 2 here, we had our baseline data, which was good as far as baseline data goes. And then our trial 1 data, I've had this happen before in the previous 2 years where the trial 1 data doesn't show us a ton of gains. And I attribute that to just the topic of trial 1 with learning targets. I really feel like that just inserting a learning target and having it on the board isn't enough to move the data. And although we're learning about learning targets in trial 1, I really think that there's like this trial 1B piece that goes into it where we talk about how we're applying that learning target to the actual class. And we talked about that with this team after trial 1. And again, I've had that in fact, these are the first 2 trials that I've run in teams 1 and 3 that I did get positive results or increased results from trial 1. all of my other teams that I've run before then have looked more like this. And I really think that's an important piece in talking about how your learning target is affecting your lesson design. Um, because if it's just if we're just creating a target and we're slapping it up on the board and we're saying it at the beginning of class, but then we're not changing how we run our normal lesson, we're probably not going to get the results. That's what's happening right here, and I thought that that was a really good key point to talk about. Um, let's go on to some of our tribulations. I know I talked about alignment with administration. I will re-clarify that it was, in retrospect, attempted alignment with administration. Because it was attempted, we tried to align some of these teams last summer to get them common prep time, whatnot. As everything happens, there were even more changes after that. We got a new building administrator after that that made some different decisions and kind of screwed things up with prep times and aligning these teams together, that pretty much put us to after school time again. That combined with the fact that some of our PLC teams meeting times got put after school this year as well. Again, with just the new administration and some of the switches, it really, really limited the time that I was able to work with a lot of the teams. Combine all of that with the fact that after we attempted this alignment with administration, we also, as a district, made a purchase to work with Solution Tree as an outside contractor. So that took away all of my PD days. My DC and building administrator they were gracious enough last year that we had really coordinated efforts where I could get like 2 or 3 hours of time on PD days to work with my teams. And that's where I ran a lot of the data analysis meetings, because 40 minutes after school is not enough time to run the data analysis meetings. In my mind, it's enough time to like look at the data, but then it's not enough time to really divulge your thoughts about the data and come to conclusions about data. So those 2 hour blocks that I had on those PD days last year were really, really helpful. And starting in November this year, I no longer had those. So I was really strapped for time. And when I ran data meetings and such after school, I was usually just skipping out on PLC meetings that I was supposed to be attending because I was running double duty. So it was a lot. And that, with all of that combined, we didn't progress nearly as much as quickly as I wanted to. I also ran 3 teams this year instead of 1, which, had I known Solution Tree was coming in and taking all of our PD time away, I would not have done that. To start the year, I would have kept probably just 1 team and maybe one other team, but I was trying to grow it at the same time. All of that ended us up at third quarter was kind of a wash with a whole bunch of Solution Tree stuff going on. So it left me in fourth quarter of trying to, we're done with trial 1, and I had just admitted to all of our teams that we weren't going to get through 3 trials now. And I wanted to get through 2 trials, which with 3 teams, I was totally going to be happy with that. And then 2 weeks ago, we had a whole bunch of momentum all planned out. We had all of our trials planned out, and we had a departure at the school, and now I'm teaching math. So I'm a full-time math teacher right now and learning math every day in order to get our kids to the end of the year. So that pretty much was the nail in the coffin for the rest of trial 2, which it just is what it is. So those were, and that combined 2 of the 12 teachers that I started with this year. I lost 2 teachers to leaving mid-year. They left for other things. And I lost 1 other teacher because of a switch that was made. I lost another teacher out of the team. So that was another kind of tribulation that we had. But all of that being said, we still made it. We still made a lot of progress, I think, and we had a lot of great conversations. I would be really interested to start talking with these teams about what I started talking about with my year 2 team, about consistency of planning out lessons, and really I'm really interested going forward in finding ways for teachers that don't take a ton of time to plan out like every single lesson and every single unit, because it's just not feasible for us to change everything all at once. So I'm really interested in just talking with teams and brainstorming ways that we can change little things, and add little strategies, and little snippets of UDL to boost what we already have made.